Hey fish friends, Zenzo with Tazawa Tanks, back with another video. So just thought I'd take a little break today and do a little sightseeing at the Waikiki Aquarium. So here's actually an exhibit right behind me. And this is actually an outdoor reef tank. Wide open, it's 85, 87 degrees outside, it's amazing. But anyway, I took some video of a bunch of tanks and exhibits, and I'll share them with you. Hope you enjoy. So here's one of the first tanks that you can see in the exhibit, and this is just a beautiful reef tank under blue lighting with some beautiful corals and some fish. This was one of my favorite tanks. This was a kind of a mangrove type setup. And I actually got a chance to talk to the staff about this tank and ask them about it, and they told me that it was indeed a brackish setup. And I was very surprised because some of these fish I knew could survive in brackish waters, but some of them I did not. So I didn't know that clowns could survive in brackish water. I know clowns are very hardy fish, and that's one of the reasons why they are in the hobby. But I had no idea that they could survive in brackish water. So anyway, this is a beautiful tank, a beautiful display. You can see another fish there, and I think they did a great job. You can see, I think it's a bang-eye or a pajama cardinal, but a great tank. I think the highlight of this aquarium for me was something that I had never seen before in a public aquarium to this magnitude or in any home tank. And what that is the lighting. So if you can see, as you can see, all that lighting for these tanks are natural sunlight. So some of the tanks will really pop, and you'll see some in the future. And I was filming this fish swimming back and forth. He had a very unique look. I forgot the name of the fish. My wife loved this fish. She thought it was cute. It had this really interesting facial structure with these red teeth that stuck out. You can see there. But here's another example of a reef tank that's just magnificent when the sunlight, right there. You can see the sunlight hitting the clown. You can see the sunlight hitting that yellow tang there. This is it was just amazing, and the video is really not doing any justice as far as the brilliant colors and how the light was just popping off of the fish and off of the corals when that natural sunlight hit it. So it's a really ingenious way for them to display these tanks. Obviously in Hawaii they have a huge advantage as far as the daylight hours, of course, being closer to the equator, and also the fact that it's very warm, so they can do some of these open top. But this is just amazing. This one, I wasn't quite sure if it was lit or not by a sunlight tube. I don't think it was, but just some crabs that I thought were interesting, and you can see a crab there eating on the right hand side, and that was neat. Here's another tank that was lit by the sunlight, and you can see there how it's just kind of glistening in the water and bouncing off of the fish as they swim through. This was a unicorn fish here that I'm filming. Just a very unique facial structure, and it almost looks like a big proboscis or something, a big nose. But I thought it was interesting, and my daughter thought it was kind of cool too. This is a you've seen this before. This is a jellyfish tank. My wife wanted me to film it. This was her favorite. She wants a jellyfish tank in a home, but probably not going to happen. Another reef tank here you can see with the sunlight. Again, it's just this video is really not doing it any justice, but all of these tanks that you're seeing here, they're not using lighting. This is all natural sunlight. It's just amazing. Here's another tank where you can see the sunlight coming through. They've got it filtered quite a bit due to the nature of these fish. You can see there's a shark in there, a big giant grouper, some other large schooling fish. I always enjoy these kind of tanks just because of the size. It's really great to see the scale of these fish and just look at how massive they are. This grouper was pretty big. Not the biggest that I've seen. I've seen groupers much bigger than this before. But this one was still, considerable in size and very big around. I'm sure the diameter around this fish is probably, 5 or 6 feet in diameter, very thick, not diameter, I'm sorry, circumference, but very thick in circumference, big fat fish. And I did get some kids in the way there in some of the filming, but I think that just kind of helps in showing the scale of how massive these fish are. And I could only imagine, being in there with them, or having one on a line, etc. It's just a huge, beautiful fish. You can see the coloration of his tail fins there, just beautiful. This is a very interesting tank because of the behavior of the seahorses. So you can see these seahorses are kind of hooked together, and I don't know if that's part of their mating ritual or dance or exchange of eggs, but I thought this was interesting. And this is another seahorse tank with the kelp. So these ones weren't as easy to see. They were kind of hanging on to the kelp beds, or to the kelp stalks there with the tail. You can see one there. And now we're coming up to my favorite tank, and probably the reason why you're watching this video. And this is the Asian Arowana. I have never seen an Asian Arowana before. They're illegal to keep in the United States, obviously for their endangered status. And this one was kept with some freshwater rays. Just a beautiful, magnificent fish. I did learn that this fish was actually confiscated along with those rays, and that's why it's here. Rather than destroying the fish, they actually took the fish and put the fish on display in the public aquarium, and used it to educate the public on kind of the status of the fish and why it's endangered, etc. But just a beautiful, amazing tank. I'll never forget this moment ever. This is a fish that I've been kind of seeing these fish all over the islands over the past few months. This is a Mozambique Tilapia. And if you watched one of my other recent videos, I was having a hard time identifying these fish. I'm still not convinced that the fish that I saw were these fish, but this is a Mozambique. This is a beautiful planted tank, and the majority of the aquarium was reef tanks and other large fish, but this was just a beautiful planted setup that they had. It wasn't really aquascaped like you'd see some tanks in the home aquariums. It was a little bit more of a natural setup, but it was large. It's a very big tank. I'm not quite sure the size of the tank, but I'm guessing this tank was 300 or 400 gallons minimum, and also lit with the sun, which is beautiful. I tried to catch it there, but couldn't get it. These fish were really unique, and I was puzzled at these fish, and I thought, are these freshwater fish? I've never seen this before, because they kind of have a freshwater look, but they are not. They are actually an ocean fish, and I just thought this was really, really a neat looking fish, just kind of majestic and very unique looking, and wanted to make sure I caught the name, which is the bearded armorhead there. Another reef tank with sunlight lighting the tank. And here you can see it again with sunlight hitting these tanks. I mean, just look at that sunlight bouncing off of the corals, bouncing off of the rock, bouncing off of the fish. It's just beautiful to see this. And it's almost like you're diving. Imagine just diving in a shallow coral reef and seeing these fish and seeing the sunlight hit it. And you're really seeing it in their natural colors versus, using overhead lighting that's not natural. And because it's Hawaii, and because it's a tropical climate, and they're in the they're in the tropics, they're able to have outdoor tanks. So here you can see it's just an outdoor giant reef pool, I guess. But really neat to see. This is a neat exhibit as well. These are giant clams, and they had these covered with a net to kind of protect this tank. And they do feed them, etc. But you can see that the giant clams just have beautiful colors. I didn't know that the giant clams had color like that. I've never seen them before in display like this. And just seeing the greens and the blues and the purples and the different colors jumping was amazing. This tank was kind of interesting. This was the last part of the exhibit that I saw. This is kind kind of showing the filtration process and how they farm some of the coral. And I just really enjoyed, kind of reading about this and seeing how this whole process worked here. And as you see when I kind of continue on here, again, it's a huge aquarium. That's all live coral. There's a tang there and another fish, but it's an open top tank, open topped tank in Hawaii. Look at that beautiful angel there. I think that's an emperor or something like that, but beautiful open top tank. I don't know if they're using. I didn't get a chance to ask them if they're using any chillers or anything because it is very warm there. But I'm assuming they're not. I'm assuming that this is just, well, probably they do if it gets really hot. But again, this is just kind of a very natural setup. So that was it for the aquarium. Here I am filming some koi when I went to one of the Japanese temples. This is just an example of what I hate about when the public gets close to these beautiful fish. They throw coins in there, which I can't stand, and these fish are actually fed by the public. You can see how fat that koi is. Kind of made me feel sad a little bit. Here you can see just, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of koi. There's also some common goldfish and comets in there as well. But there is a giant pond. This is just a very tiny part of it, but it's almost like a small lake. But here you can see just, beautiful fish. So anyway, that's all I had. Just wanted to share a little bit of my trip. Hope you enjoy. Please like, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.